back to MUFC versus everybody. I'm so glad you guys are here. I'm so glad you guys are engaging and watching the videos and willing to listen to me rant and ramble and just waffle on about any and everything Manchester United related. I am your host, Sean. Welcome back to the channel. Before we do get started, it would mean a lot to me. Go ahead and hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check me out, MUFC versus everybody on Twitter. I do love seeing the engagement and I do love seeing those views. So let me know your thoughts on some of these videos, and if we can keep the channel growing. Like I said before, I'd love to show my appreciation, give something back to you guys. Maybe do some giveaways, maybe do some call-ins in the future as we continue to grow. I really love to see that happen. I'd really like to see just how this channel just develops and reaches more people. I think it'd be really fun. So today we're going to be talking about managers. So obviously we started a series this week on managers that United have been heavily linked with. And I've been kind of looking through them, looking through their qualifications, their tactics, what they've won, everything. Running over that with a fine-tooth comb. I put down some criteria as far as these managers are concerned. I've kind of been scoring them on those criteria in an effort to see if they would be able to take on a club like United of our size, of our pressure, of the player profile that we attract, and if that's something that would suit them. We did our first video. We put Ten Hag through the ringer and let you guys see what you think about that. In that same video, we also took a look at Graham Potter, who we've been heavily linked with and who has been out of the job since being sacked by Chelsea. Yesterday, we took a look at Roberto De Zerbi in part 2. You know, Brighton's current manager took over for Potter, and whether or not we think he'd be a good fit. Go check out those videos. I think they're really fun, really good. A lot of information, a lot of good thoughts and opinions. I know that sounds like I'm just hyping myself up. In some ways I am, but I do enjoy these things, and I would love to hear your thoughts as well. Today, we're jumping into part 3, and today we are going to be taking a look at probably one of the most popular, one of the hottest managers around right now, and that is Ruben Amorim of Sporting Lisbon. I know a lot of people like Amorim. I like Amorim, and I'd like to dive a little bit more today to see what makes him tick, see what he's all about, and see what would make him a good fit, whether or not he would be a good fit for United. So we're to get stuck in. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's go. So obviously, Amorim is a Sporting manager. He's been there a few years now. He's 39 years old. He's Portuguese. He is a member of what I've started to call the manager brat pack. This is that next generation of managers that includes, Amorim, it includes Nagelsmann, Thiago Motta, Xabi Alonso, Xavi at Barcelona. I would say Kieran McKenna is starting to sneak in there a little bit. We'll see what he does next year, but I think he is a candidate. He's kind of prospecting right now for it, for all my Sons of Anarchy fans. And then I would also maybe put Ferrioli at Nice in there as well. He could possibly sneak in the next few years. We'll see how he does. He started off really strong this season, and then it's kind of fallen off. But I think he could make a case next season as well if he could continue to really push in the league. It's hard to compete in the French league just with PSG, and he started off really strong and it's kind of tapered off. But I think Ferrioli could sneak in. So that's like my managerial brat pack, these younger managers, late 30s, early 40s kind of age, that are kind of up and coming right now. So Amorim, he took the role at Sporting in March 2020 after just 2 months of managerial experience at Braga. So he'd only been a first team manager for 2 months at Braga before the role at Sporting became available because they sacked their manager. Now that happened in March 2020. That's very late in the season. Not a whole lot of time to really do much, right? Sporting paid 10 million euros to Braga to bring Amorim in, which at the time was the third highest fee for a manager ever. Shows a lot of faith in him, right? Must have seen something there. In the few months since taking over Sporting, Amorim won 6 matches, drew 3, and lost just once to lost to Benfica and Porto, which are Sporting's main league rivals, and that's going to come back to haunt him a couple times. So 6, 3, and 2, that's not a bad record for coming in March 2020. Not really having any time, not really getting any working with the players you have. That's a good tick in the positive box, as far as I'm concerned. He did get Sporting to a 4th place finish, and he did qualify for the Europa League qualifiers. So, but I think what a lot of people at Sporting and a lot of fans really liked, though, about Amorim when he came in, is that they, in that short period of time, they already saw a style and an identity on the pitch in the club. They could already see that something was different with him. And I think that gives people hope. We've heard it a lot this season with, people complaining at Ten Hag, what are they seeing on the pitch? It does make a difference. People are willing to be a little more patient if they can see something. So Amorim exploded onto the scene in his 2nd season. Once he got his summer, once we got to really have a preseason, 2021 season was a barnstormer. He went on a 32-match unbeaten run, and Sporting ended the season with just 1 loss. That's insane. That's insane, 1 loss. And he managed to get Sporting in that season. He got them their first league title in nearly 20 years. He was named the league's manager of the season. And I mean, I think everybody at Sporting had a huge cause to celebrate, right? That's a huge deal. Coming in your first full season and doing that. Amorim's 3rd season, which technically is his 2nd full season, the next season, continued on that trajectory, right? He got Sporting to its first Champions League round of 16 berth since the 08-09 season. He became the fastest manager to win 50 games in the Portuguese league. They did end up being eliminated in the Champions League by Manchester City. And they ended up finishing 2nd in the league. So like a 1 step back, right? Which still, though, is not bad. I think a lot of people, when he came in, didn't have high expectations. And they did end up on the same points that season than as the season before when they won the league. So technically the same points. And this is why people say the table doesn't lie. The table doesn't lie, but it can be misleading. Numbers aren't everything. Same points, right? But the league is a little different. So 3rd season in charge, things started to take a little bit of a dive. Sporting finished 4th place last season, so his 3rd season in charge. And they ended up being back in the Europa League. And they didn't have a great season, obviously. Amorim was publicly backed by Sporting's president, though, who did kind of blame it on the poor transfer planning. They lost a lot of key players, and they didn't really replace them very well going into the season. And that's why recruitment and planning transfers is such a big deal. I know clubs like Benfica and Sporting, they tend to be selling clubs, that is how they sustain themselves in a lot of ways. But you have to plan for that. You have to it's like playing pool. You have to think a couple moves ahead and have a plan going into this. Be really proactive, or else you set yourself up for these situations. We see it at United all the time. And so the president blamed a lot of that for Sporting struggles. He fully backed Amorim, and he believes in him. You could tell that they believe in him. And that's good for a manager as well. It's good for a squad when they can see, like, this guy is being backed, we're backed, like, let's go. This season, it seems like they learned their lesson, Sporting, and they prepared, and they backed Amorim by breaking the transfer record to sign Victor Gyökeres from Coventry City. Obviously, Gyökeres had 21 goals, 10 assists in the championship season prior, and he's come in this season and has just taken the Portuguese league by storm. I am not too humble to admit and to share that I did a scouting report on Gyökeres last season when he was at Coventry, and I could not say anything negative about it. He was such a good striker. I could see that he was such a good striker. I thought he would have been a great signing for Spurs when Harry Kane left. He's going to Sporting, and he's going to cost like $100 million if people want him now, when he could have been so cheap last year. Like, I wish Premier League clubs would scout a little better. I wish United would scout a little better. He would be a perfect complement to Rasmus Højlund, in my opinion, because he's a lot of his goals come from inside the box. He's got good movement. He contributes to the build-up. He's very fast. He plays a lot like Højlund. I think Højlund can learn a lot from him. But that's besides the point. That move, anyway, for Gyökeres has massively paid off. We've seen Sporting achieve their biggest margin of victory ever this season with an 8-0 win over Casapia. And they currently sit top of the table. They're 5 points ahead of their rivals Benfica. There's 3 matches to go. They could looks like they're on track to win, barring any sort of major collapse. And Amorim, he shows when he can do it without his players. He can do it with players leaving, and he can do it with young players, and he can do it especially when he's backed and he's getting the pieces to his puzzle. So during his time so far as sporting manager, Amorim has a 70% win percentage, which is a stellar win percentage. Let me get a cup of coffee. He has one league title, 2 Taça da Liga Cups, which is basically the Portuguese league's equivalent of a Carabao Cup. So if you wanted to equate that to England, he's got like a Premier League and 2 Carabao Cups, basically. But let's also not forget that Manager of the Season award. That's a big deal in his first full season. Needless to say, like I've said, Amorim is the in-demand manager right now. He was heavily linked with the Liverpool job since Jurgen Klopp announced he was leaving at the end of the season after peaking in 2019 and finally growing tired of Paul Tierney, apparently. Sorry, couldn't resist. But Amorim also interviewed for the West Ham job and turned it down. And he confirmed that by apologizing for the timing of his meeting with West Ham this past week. And so we know that he's open to leaving. He did also interview for the Chelsea job, but then Chelsea appointed Pochettino instead. So as far as his managerial style is concerned, Amorim is known as an excellent communicator, very personable, very engaging. He's very adaptable and flexible in his tactics and his playing style. So as far as his tactics, he does prefer that 3 at the back, similar to like we talked about with Graham Potter. But Amorim uses a 3-4-3, sometimes with a 3 and then a 4 as a flat, but sometimes a 4 or in a diamond as well. He likes 2 midfielders who can excel in both attack and defense, and who can kind of serve as a link up with his wide players as they're overlapping. But who can also protect the defense when they need to. With a 3-man defense, you want to be able to have some protection as well. He likes his teams to press high and win the ball high up the pitch, but his defense, he organizes his defense so well, which is such a good trait as a manager. His defense gets into a compact shape, they defend the edge of their box, and they limit opportunities for the opposition, which is incredible. Now again, similar to Graham Potter, this formation, in terms of United context, as we're talking about, could alter our transfer plans a little bit because we're not used to playing that way. Our midfielders tend to be either attacking or defensive, not really quite both. Although, tangent, I will say that, so there's an account on X called United Tribune, they did just do a thread this morning on the possibility of United overall moving to a 3 at the back, a 3-4-3 kind of system, which on paper it looks more like a 3-4-2-1. And they cited a lot of reasons for doing that. The player profiles we're looking at, the way our youth team plays that formation. So there's a chance that we could be kind of moving that. And I think maybe it sounds like this account thinks that Ten Hag is doing that. So it might not be too big of a stretch, but we'll see. I do really like Amorim. And with our new structure behind the scenes, our recruitment structure, I do think he could hit the ground running at United, even in a new league with these players. I do think it would be a big help. So we've looked at his tenure, we looked at his managerial style. How does Amorim score on some of this criteria, though, that we've been looking at this week? Let's take a look at his tactics and his match impact. I give him a 7 out of 10. Amorim's tactics have been lauded by pretty much everyone in football. He's been praised for his tactical knowledge and his match IQ. His team is defensively solid in the 2021 season, right? They conceded just 15 goals in 32 matches. They kept 20 clean sheets, and they've got 12 matches won by a single goal margin. Like, that's a big deal. So tactics and match impact were very good. Sorry if you just picked that up on the mic. I had an itch on my neck. But again, it's the Portuguese league, and we've seen them struggle sometimes in some big matches against his rivals. For instance, over the years, it's been very hard for them to find wins. And so match tactics work overall, but you have to kind of reach that next level in some of these big important matches. And we haven't seen him quite impact matches that way yet. Man management and player egos. I give him a 7 out of 10. So again, he's well known for being a good communicator. He makes every single player at the club feel important, whether they're a youth player or a senior player, and he knows how to utilize his subs and make rotations and keep everyone kind of rowing in the same direction, keeping everyone motivated, keeping everyone believing, basically. We have players coming off the bench to impact games, and squad members who have not seen many minutes on the pitch have also shown fight and proven very reliable when they're called upon. So overall, Amorim has shown he's capable of instilling a team spirit and an identity that can be felt. You can feel it. It's tangible. It remains to be seen, however, how he can manage high-profile players, which is why it's stuck at a 7 out of 10, because it's Sporting and it's not United. So I'm not saying United is the best. I'm saying the profile of players that he's going to get at this level are going to be much different, and we're going to see how that happens. We've already seen high-profile players not happy to not play all the time. We've seen them throw fits. We've seen them just cause problems and drama. And if you can't tell, I'm referring to a certain ex-Sporting player who returned to United a few years ago and did a very temper tantrum diva queen interview with Piers Morgan. Amorim trusts youth, though, as well, which I really like, and obviously that's a big foundation of United is our youth. Youth, courage, success. We play the youth. We have that academy record for having, an academy player in every single matchday squad since like 1937. Like we've had 250 academy graduates come through and play through the first team when Ethan Wheatley did that last week. It's a big deal. So an example of this. So in March 2021, in the match against Vitória de Guimarães, Sporting were ahead 1-0, and there was 10 minutes left in the match. Amorim made a very bold substitution. He brought on a 16-year-old named Dario Esugo for veteran João Mario. So he took João Mario off, who was obviously 30 at the time or so. Brought on a 16-year-old with 10 minutes remaining. Probably raised a lot of eyebrows. Would likely, it's one of those decisions in a match where you're like, okay, he's either throwing the youth under the bus or he's trusting them. It could go either way, depending on. A lot of this is outcome based, which on one hand you could say that's not fair, but on the other hand, it's just nature of the job, right? Sporting ended up holding on to win, and Usugo, the 16-year-old, he was overcome with emotion for just playing a part in that. He was emotional on the pitch. There were tears in his eyes. He was so excited. So Amorim gets it. He gets how important young players are to the foundation of a club, to the culture, to the fan base. He gets that's part of when that's heavily part of the identity of a club. Amorim gets it, and he wants to embrace it. He shows each of his players that they're all important to him, and they're all important to the overall structure of the club. Each one is just as important as the next. He even said after that match that this is a sign for all young players in this Portuguese league that at this club, you will be given your chance. So that should be taken into account when deciding which club to join. He gets it when it comes to the youth. So, I think that would fit like a glove at United. So number 3, big club pressure and personality. I give him a 5 out of 10. It's not like a bad thing. It's just that he's only done it at Sporting. That's literally the only club he's been at. That's just the way it is. Sporting are a big club in Portugal, but it's nowhere near Man United. Amorim's done a lot, though, to make them challengers, even in Europe, giving some teams a black eye, which is you're never going to get bashed for that. And I think that what I like, too, is that when it comes to his personality, he makes a point not to go in on refs and pressers and anything, which is good in one hand in Sporting, but in the Premier League, that might be hard to avoid the way our refs are and just the pressure from the media, the pressure that comes after these matches sometimes. Just quite frankly, the crap decisions we see from refs on a weekly basis and the inconsistencies. We'll see if he's able to maintain that abstinence from bashing refs, because if so, then hey man, more power to you for being the bigger man. That'd be difficult. Crisis management, number 4. I give him a 5 out of 10. This one, he does get a couple ticks against him. So there's a good example. So in 21-22 season, Sporting came back after losing their first 2 Champions League group games. So the first time they're in Champions League, right? They lost their first 2 group games. And they ended up coming back to finish the group strong and finish second in that group. They did struggle last season, though, following the sales of a lot of their key players. We talked about that with other managers. Like, how do you handle it when you lose key players? You know, Brighton, Roberto De Zerbi have kind of fallen apart without Caicedo and McAllister. Sporting obviously saw the loss of a couple of their players. I think Mateus Nunes left, and that was a season that they really struggled. They did fail to qualify for a Champions League draw after a 2-2, or for a Champions League after a 2-2 draw with Benfica when they were ahead in that match 2-0. And so again, that's an example. Again, like I alluded to earlier, Amorim he's finally gotten to a place where I think he can beat the main league rivals, you know, the Portos, the Benficas, but he has struggled to do that in a while. We hear it all the time, though. How many in the Premier League? You know, how do you do against the other big six? And there's that table that comes out all the time, you know, showing all the big six clubs and how they do against each other. So that is a tick against him in terms of just being able to handle the pressure of playing your league rival. Qualifications, I'm going to give him a 6.5 to a 7 out of 10 for this. So he's won just one league in Portugal and 2 domestic cups with Sporting, right? He did get them their first league title in 19 years, and he did go on some impressive runs in Europe. And he got them to their first, European qualifying since in like a decade, right? That's impressive. You know, we saw that with Ten Hag. You know, Ten Hag won the Eredivisie several years in a row after Ajax struggled to win for like 4 or 5 years. Got them to their first Champions League semifinal since like the 90s. So that is qualification. You have to take that into consideration. But like Ten Hag, is that enough to take on a job like United? Is that enough to make that big of a step up? I don't know. He was interviewing for the West Ham job. He's interviewing for the Chelsea job. Those are 2 very different levels of club. He was heavily linked to Liverpool as well, and now he's heavily linked with United. Ten Hag's qualifications, again, were very similar, albeit with more league titles, and the job has maybe been a little bit too big for Ten Hag as well. The pressure, just the player egos, sometimes we've seen, is that something that Amorim would struggle with as well? We don't know. It could be the same. He could be different. I don't know. I think as far as personality goes, Amorim is definitely more personable than Ten Hag. That's not saying Ten Hag is grumpy. I think that just the sheer personality, the way they communicate is just different. It's not better or worse. It's just different. And I think that players respond to something that maybe better than others. And that's not a slight on Ten Hag. It's just a fact, the way it is. So we'll see. I do like Amorim a lot. I think that it could almost be a great fit in terms of a long-term plan with a new structure, with a bit of a rebuild. I think that almost suits this whole clean, fresh start thing like a glove. I do think he's probably the leader of this new generation of coaches. And I think that he is ready for the next step. I don't know if he's ready for a club like United, but he's one similar to Ten Hag, because I've said the same thing about Ten Hag. He's one that I'd be willing to try with. If Ten Hag were to go, I think that Amorim would be right at the top of my list in terms of replacements. Like I said the other day, Nagelsmann probably would have been the top of my list, but Nagelsmann's sticking around with Germany, so Amorim probably takes part. I do like his tactics. I do like the way he sets his team up. I do like his defensive record, and I do like just a lot of the aspects of his communication style, his management style, his personality. He does work with the youth, which we will all love. It's part of United's DNA, and so I think that the fact that he gets it at Sporting, I think that he would make a good fit. And so I think Amorim would be a perfect fit. But again, the only thing that I question is the big club step up. Can he handle it? And he's still young. Obviously, his tactics are good, but we'll see. Because he's only done it at Sporting. He's only won 1 league and 2 domestic cups. And so we'll see how it goes with him this summer. He's been heavily linked to a lot of big clubs. Obviously, he's open to moving. He's been interviewing and stuff. And so I think we could see him move. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, though. So that's my take on Ruben Amorim. I rate him very, very highly. I do think he would be a good fit at United. But again, that big club pressure is a big step up from Sporting. So that is the only question mark I see right now. But let me know your thoughts in the comments, please. We'll come back tomorrow and do another video on another manager. We've got a couple left, and let me know your thoughts on the series. Let me know your thoughts on Ruben Amorim, on what's going on with United, and we'll go from there. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new. And don't forget to check me out on MUFC versus Everybody on Twitter. And I really appreciate you guys watching and engaging, and I hope to hear your thoughts. Take it easy, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.